What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to season 2 of the L3 Perspective.
You know, life, love, and leadership is definitely the lens through which I see the world. So I am very grateful to be in an environment with like-minded individuals that are speaking the same language, that are talking the same talk.
What I was telling G is I want to be a master of it, though. I want to study this art of speaking because, yeah, I'm good at it, but I want to be a master of it.
There's a difference between when you're good at something and great at something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, love, share. These conversations are the ones that really affect everyday life for all of us. And ultimately, we do this for you to begin with. Keep listening. We appreciate y'all who are rocking with us into season 2. Because like I said, we do it for y'all.
What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. I'm sitting here with my guy, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
Along with our special guest, I was about to say Cameron. Along with our special guest,
it's always special,
Carlos Leon. We'll introduce him here in a second. Just very grateful to have him on. But again, we want to welcome you back to the L3 Perspective. This is a platform where we talk about life, we talk about love, we talk about leadership, 3 essential elements to life itself. With that being said, I'm going to toss over to Cam. We'll go ahead and get started soon.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Before we get started, you already know, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. At the end of the day, we do it for y'all. And if we don't know what's vibing with you or what you want to listen to, then we're just going to keep doing what we want. And that's all we want. So let us know, comment, and do all that because that's how the show grows. And we appreciate y'all who have been rocking with us for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Carlos, really, Cam, I'm going to start here. So, Cam, about a month ago, I had the opportunity to connect with Carlos. And, you know, obviously, this platform, we talk about life, love, and leadership. But I will say that it's something about a stand-up, thorough man that is almost non-existent today. Right. And so one of the things that I really got from just kind of connecting with Carlos was that, right? A thorough individual, right? Navigated through life, a leader impacting so many people who will impact the next few generations. And so just through that conversation, man, I was just like, I look forward to having them on the platform. But anyway, with that being said, Carlos, welcome to the L3 Perspective. We appreciate you, appreciate your time and everything that you do.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the invite. That's a lot to live up to.
Glenn always be doing that to people.
Yeah.
We're intentional about who we select to be on here. So.
I'll say the feeling is mutual. The only reason that I believe that we're able to have a conversation like that is because we're able to have a conversation like that, if you know what I mean. If things are out of balance, that conversation doesn't exist.
Right.
So the feeling is mutual. So I appreciate both of you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. But yeah, so Carlos, I know you from SoCal, San Diego, up here now in Solano County. Is there a big difference? Number one, we'll start there. Is there a big difference from the SoCal vibe versus like Bay Area or Northern California?
I want to know this too, because I hear this from Net all the time. She's like, it's just different up here. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Is it different? I know, right? Like right now, I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together. How am I going to navigate around this?
Yo, Gene giving them loaded questions.
Yeah.
Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
We're going to have to keep an eye on it. Is it different? Yeah, it's different. Sometimes I feel like I see more up here. More of more, right? But the truth is, there's probably a lot more happening down south. It's just, it's a little more less pedestrian.
Gotcha.
I'm being careful with my words. Yeah. It's a little less pedestrian. It's a little less random. It's a little less chaotic. But it exists.
Right.
I mean, super, right?
Yeah.
And up here, like you'll see, like you can look on the parking lot and something may happen right now. And it was my experience. I haven't lived down south in a long time, but it was my experience that if something's happening, it's not very random. Super, super intense. Hispanic, Mexican influence. Murals, the food. Up here, it's you're not necessarily sure what you're gonna go eat, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Down south, it's either road tacos or
Gotcha.
tacos or burritos or the California burrito's killing it.
Gotcha.
It's it's typically some type of Mexican food.
Mm-hmm.
At least that was my experience. Business owners,
Mm-hmm.
whole communities, right? Streets, blocks. They have art crawls.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of intense.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool sometimes, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I feel like I've noticed, like you mentioned, like community. I feel like I've seen way more community like down south than I see a lot of times in Northern California. Because like there's a large span of area that is heavily populated, whereas up here there's like San Francisco, and then there's like Sacramento, and then you have like Fairfield, Vacaville, Dixon, Davis.
Yeah.
And then you have like Oakland, Berkeley, and Richmond. But I took Glenn to Berkeley for the first time, and I was like, this isn't even how it was when I grew up. Like, you used to just walk. This street used to be flooded with people, like Telegraph, and like now it's not. And so, and then like even around here, you think people want to be as involved as they may want to be, and it's like you find these little pockets, but it's not as heavy as it is in SoCal.
It's kind of foreign, right?
It's foreign up here.
I just had a conversation yesterday with my roommate, and she was telling me about kids. They were talking about kids and how they don't go outdoors anymore, and they don't do this and they don't do that. And I was thinking about it, and I was telling her, well, I mean, it's pros and cons though, because we grew up playing baseball and football in the streets and the water balloon fights and all that, but we grew up comfortable in the streets.
Right.
There's a comfort that came with running around the streets at a young age, right?
With no shoes on.
And by the time I was old enough to do old enough stuff, I was already comfortable.
Right.
Like that wasn't a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Like we've been playing out here.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was talking to my 7-year-old Isaiah about playing basketball on crates on the on the street poles, and he like he couldn't even like he was like first of all he was like, well, what is a crate?
Yo, he grew up in Philly.
Yeah. So it's funny. He was like, well, what is a crate? So I went on Google showing what a milk crate was. Like, yeah, we used to cut out the bottom of it, hang it up on on the telephone pole, and then play ball all day long.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting, with you saying that, just it could be, there are pros and cons that come along with that, right? And because the way the world is actually turning, how are you adapting, even as a youth? How are you adapting or teaching the youth how to adapt to the world that's around them while still being able to navigate through it? And so,
it's like that fear factor too that like we're putting in kids. Like, remember, so like, I lived on the military base. I live off it now, but like when Darren came over, like the G, we're family, so we're always together, and we're like, hey, y'all go to the park. Because between all of our kids, there's 7 of them that can like walk around and do stuff. And so they were like, "What do you mean?" We're like, "You can just go walk to the park and like go play." And then Darren was like, "I love base. Like, I can't do that where I live at."
Yeah.
Because realistically, you probably can't, because there's like busy streets, people drive like assholes, like
other stuff,
whatever it is, right? Yeah. And so, but the fact that an 11-year-old also identifies that, you're like, what's that going to look like in 10 years? Like, what else are you going to not potentially do because of this fear factor that's almost been somewhat bred? Yeah. Like, my daughter asked me, I looked at the library because they're like, I want to go to the library. I was like, let's see how close it is. Let's see if you can ride your bike there. And they're like, you're going to let us ride our bike to the library? And I was like, yeah, stay on the sidewalk, wear a helmet. Like,
she's like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. No, well, Zoe.
Right.
She will do it. But I also know that, shit happens. If you fall down, you'll be all right. Luckily, we are in a technology age now. Like, someone with you will probably have a cell phone. So if something happens, you call. Yeah. We're in, Vacaville, relatively safe, but it's like, I don't want to like just keep y'all in the house all day.
Yeah. Speaking of the youth, I know you pour into a lot of the youth. What are some, kind of like navigating through life itself? Like, what are some things that you share, some principles that you share with them to kind of like help them to set a firm foundation?
It's a tough time. Like it's difficult. So some of these individuals, I'm not going to call them kids, right?
They're dealing with stuff that
yeah, they're dealing with mature stuff.
Yeah.
Even their emotions and their thoughts, they're already matured, and they've like they sped through a few chapters, right?
Yeah.
But it's a tough time because at that part of our lives, like we're trying to figure out what our role is in the world, right? So there's a lot of trauma, right? There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of neglect. I'm just speaking general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain, loss, right?
Right.
Some are uneducated, most unaware of the consequences of their behaviors, and in that like desperate state of mind, they're gonna paint a picture for the rest of their lives, right? So these guys are they're panicking, and they want to exist, they want to matter,
Right.
they want to have a voice, they want to be significant, and they're looking for a way, and they're reaching for straws, bro. Like, I don't care how I do it, doesn't matter. So they paint the picture. They have an idea of what they want their role to look like, and the goal is set.
Yeah.
The goal is set, and it's on. I mean, whatever, however, whoever.
Right.
I'm gonna get it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get it. And how do you talk someone into not even changing that, because
You want them to be
we're nowhere
motivated.
near that, right? How do you talk someone into just let's take a look at that, man?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, for real. Let's
Yeah.
take a look at that, because if you're having a conversation with me, things might not be panning out for you so good, right?
Perspective.
And you and I kind of had a conversation about this. If I'm trying to make a living playing baseball, and I can't hit the ball out of the infield,
Right.
Why would I go on through life introducing myself as Carlos the baseball player,
Yeah.
thinking I'm gonna make a living, thinking I'm gonna find success through baseball? When, bro,
Right.
no, you're not.
Right.
So like being a criminal, being like choosing that lifestyle is a trip, because you'll continue and you'll continue and you'll continue. It doesn't matter the consequences.
Yeah. Snowballs.
Juvenile hall, county jail, prison, worse, prison inside prison. You'll continue and you'll continue because you set that goal
Right.
when you were that kid.
Yeah.
And you'll continue to chase it until you look at it. It's a vicious, vicious thing, man.
Yeah.
That's like the kid I mentor in juvenile, like, you know, he's talking about, oh, I'm gonna do this when I get up, I'm gonna do that. And I was like, all right. I was like, slide the whiteboard over here real quick. Let's talk about it. You know, because he's coming up on a time when he could potentially get out and within months be eligible, be 18. And so he's trying to navigate like, oh, I'm gonna go foster with my sister, and then I'm gonna go on my own all of a sudden. I'm like, let's talk about this. And so we like pulled over the whiteboard and I said, I want you to write down your expenses. He's like, well, which ones? I was like, nope, I want to know what you know. And he was like, okay. And I was like, no wrong answer. Just do the best you can. And he's like, okay. And so we go through all this stuff, and it's like, you know, he's like, what? I need electricity. And I was like, yes. You know, and he did a really great job of going through like the essential things, you know, rent, you know, utilities, food. And then we got to like, oh, I got to get me some clothes. I was like, okay, how much you gonna spend on clothes a month? He's like, I don't know, like 800. Right. You know, we went through this list, and I think it came out for his first month that he supposedly wanted to live on his own. It was going to cost him like $7,500. And that was like paying utilities, getting some clothes, doing a little like the cheapest furniture that he can get, you know, stuff like that. And he was like, oh, wow. And I said, and so let's knock off those initial costs. So like furniture, whatever, you're still looking at like $4,500 to $5,000 a month. And he was like, wow. I said, yeah, I know most adults who don't make that. 30 and 40, 50-year-olds who don't make that. And unfortunately, you at 18, not going to make that.
Right.
You know, and that was somewhat of I could see his brain like really kind of coming to that realization, because one of the things like, I'm going to be on my own. And it's like, this isn't the world you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
The world that we grew up in, like I think about all
Right.
the time, is like getting out at 18 is not, unfortunately, kind of a likelihood for most of these kids.
Yeah.
More and more of these parents I meet have 20 to 30-year-olds in their house still living.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas, when we were growing up, we're like, oh, what? Like, get a life, bro. And now it's just like, that's the environment we live in. That's a
Mhm.
normality. If anything, it's like, well, at least you have a parent's home to go to. Because a lot of people don't. And that's like, I think what we find here with the circles we run in is like, how can we help create this like better future for the youth, because there just ain't a lot out there for them.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I was just reading a article the other day, and it was saying how like 40 is either 47 or 56% of the youth or who's turning 18 years old are still supported by their parents and or a loved one. And to kind of go back to what you were saying and kind of creating a picture, and you having the kid you mentor, not kid, the juvenile that you mentor, go up on the whiteboard. So just last week, had a very similar situation where I was teaching some of the juveniles financial literacy, right? And we talked about, hey, what's the end goal? Like, what are your goals, right? And I had them draw it up on the whiteboard, right? I split the whiteboard in half, and it was two particular kids who came up, and they drew pictures of what they wanted their life to look like. And then we broke that down and talked about from savings to investments to a lot of things that's not communicated in our community or taught in our community. And it was amazing to kind of see. At first, they were just kind of like this, and then it was just like, as the conversation, they like sat up and was just like, wow, I didn't know that. And the reason why I did that is because these two particular juveniles, their end goal is to be entrepreneurs. And so we talk specifically like what that looks like. Like, how do you even get there? Like, if you're in a current state where you're living check to check, right? Parents are, you may have a dysfunctional family, may be facing so much of life happening to you. How do you create a foundation at all? Right. And so we tied that into like mindset and a whole bunch of stuff, but they were very receptive. And I feel like if we pour more of our time, energy, and effort into this next generation, there is hope, right? I mean, life won't be perfect, but I feel like it's a lot of, being an inner city kid. If I had someone that took me under their wing, as a youngin', I don't think that I still would have I was a knucklehead, so I still would have, bumped my head a couple of times, but I would have had more tools to be able to navigate through that situation. And I feel like, oftentimes we're allowing the technology to teach or influence this next generation, where people like yourself are in the trenches with them and saying, hey, I've been where you're at right now. And I'm, this is how I navigated through them, and sharing those life stories, and that's again, I take my hat off to you for pouring everything that you pour into the youth. So
thank you. I love that you guys do that, because it feels like the flip side of what I do or what I try to do.
It's like both sides coming in.
Right. Yeah. And it takes multiple angles, right? So for me, I'm thinking, so like, what's the goal, right? I don't use the word goal. Like, so talk to me, like, what do you want to get? Like, what are you doing this for? And they'll paint the picture.
Right.
This, and they're gonna get it through criminality and violence, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so you will. You will get those things. But I think the mind, what most of them are thinking is, they're thinking of themselves in the present. Who I am today. If I just add this, and this, life is good.
Yeah.
Like, crime and violence is a fix. If I just add A, B, and C to who I am today, I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
The part that's missing is, once you get A, you become a whole nother person. Right?
Yeah.
And then once you add B, that's a whole nother ballgame. And then you add C, and this is just like exponential. You just become a whole different person. And now your needs are different.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are different. The things that you give yourself permission to do are different. You're no longer that person.
Correct.
If it was possible to stay that person and add these other variables, okay.
Right.
Okay, maybe. But it don't work like that.
Right.
Everything we do, absolutely everything we do, changes who we are. There was a point in my life where I was afraid to punch someone. because like unconsciously, like I would become the kind of person who now punches people. It was scary, right? All I knew about violence is that it hurts, because all that's happened was me getting beat, right? So I'm cool on violence, right? I'm a kid, and I'm like, I'm good, but that day came, and then it happened, and all of a sudden, in my world, I punch people.
Carlos, I punches people.
So all of a sudden, I have a whole new set of permissions. I have a whole new set of thoughts. My world is different because now I live in a world where I punch people.
Right.
And then so on and so forth. Everything changes the course, which is why it's important what we involve ourselves in, who we surround ourselves by, what we tap into, what we don't tap into. All of it matters. There are no days off.
Right.
There are no days off. There are no takebacks for adults. Period. Once you stop playing in the sandbox, there are no more like, hey, my bad, homie.
Right.
Hey, you know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
Right.
More homies though. Yeah. Like, nah, man, you said that.
Right.
You did that.
You got to stand on that.
You did that, man. And then move forward. Then we find a way, right? But there are no takebacks. If you leave this place and you see me hanging out with, whoever, you're gonna be like, damn, Carlos, okay. All right. Something's gonna happen. Right? And I know that. Like, I'm aware of that. I have to be hyper aware of that. Unfortunately, I've lived the type of life where I have to be that aware. Life.
Gotcha. So you speak about self-awareness, and I think that in this, I guess, season of society, so many people throw that word around, right? Self-awareness, some may not even know what it means. And being the guy, the man, the leader that you are today, as a parent, what advice would you give parents, or what advice would you give people who have young men that they're raising, on how they could become more self-aware at whatever level that they're at, whether, young teen, mid-teen, early adult, like what
Shit, grown men.
Yeah.
Or
For sure.
women,
Just
right?
our listeners, to be honest with you, like what are some things that you would share on that, on how one can become more self-aware?
I think, not I think. I know that for me, my greatest goal in sitting down with a young man or a young lady and we're working is to have an honest conversation, period. Erase the right and the wrong of it. It's not, it confuses things, right? So for me, the most important part is to have an honest conversation, whatever the conversation is, just to have an honest conversation to be able to like pull them out of that fantasy world, because we create these fantasy worlds, right? And they're so subtle that we don't even see it. Sometimes I still tap into that shit.
Every day, son.
Right? But the way to do it is I'll ask them something that they're not comfortable with, whatever it is. And then when they respond, they give me like a lightweight, they give me a watered down version of the truth. And my response will be, you're supposed to feel that way, man. Like, you're supposed to think that. Everything you've done, everything you've experienced has taught you to think that. Like, I'd be concerned if you didn't think that way. Like, it's good. Like, you're supposed to feel that way.
Right.
Whatever it is, like, that's how you're supposed to feel. You're not supposed to feel a different way because your life wasn't different.
Right.
And then that starts to create like an honest dialogue, right? And then from there, the next step would be something along the lines of like being healthy, making better decisions is not the absence of dysfunction. Like, fuck all that. You know what I mean? Being healthy, being productive, pro-social, right? Is knowing your mental pitfalls, is knowing how you think, the way you want to think, because I still love thinking negative. You know what I mean? I love that shit. But it's knowing when it's happening, knowing why it happens, and then doing something to adjust around that.
Right.
I think we're all dysfunctional. in some way.
Oh yeah, no one's perfect.
I mean, for
Especially
real.
Cam.
Yeah, especially
Yeah. No, yeah, I
Hella
agree. I agree.
but I'm aware of it. I know how to get out of it. I'm glad you. So I was having a conversation about confirmation bias, and it's almost like you're using that, but in a positive way, because you're confirming, like, yeah, it's okay to feel like that, rather than be like, no, you shouldn't feel like that.
Mhm.
That's interesting. 'Cause I've never kind of realized that
Mhm.
before when you're having these emotional conversations with people is like, because normally we talk about confirmation bias as a completely negative
Mhm.
thing.
Right.
That is definitely like a way to positively open up the dialogue, right? Because usually when people tell you the first thing they tell you, it's a lie. It's not the, like you said, it's not the full truth. It's that watered down piece, right?
Right.
And as you take them down the rabbit hole, create more and more trust,
Mhm.
more and more honesty. That's when you like really find out, okay, this is why this became such a big deal, because those three other things that were bigger deals that you didn't want to talk about at first. Yeah.
Interesting.
And my favorite, and I know we're, excuse me, I know we're doing something when they're teaching me. You know what I mean? When I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Whenever I start to have that little counter
Mhm.
transference, like I know something's happening.
Right.
So I know we're about to do something. It's difficult though. It's
Mhm.
difficult because sometimes we can talk for 2 months and just have that 1 5-minute moment. It might take me 2 months of weekly sessions to have that little window
Epiphany.
where something is happening, something
Mhm.
real is happening. It may be cathartic, you know what I mean? And it's our job to identify that shit, man.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Got into it with her,
Mhm.
did this, did that. We just tapped into something, and then not try to expect too much out of it.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
let it be for a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
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 There's like this social media in like 2024 has created this like everything happens in an instant. And I think this is a good point. Is like 2
Mhm.
months, 6 months, a year, like I went through coaches
Decades.
decades. When I went through training, like when I went through training to become a coach, like I remember, the guy who's teaching us who's been doing it for 2, 3 decades, he's telling us how he had a client. He was like, I worked with this person for a whole year, never got to the bottom of like the whole reason we were even there in the first place. He's like, and then all of a sudden I asked one question and it happened. And he's like, but that's exhausting. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's why people don't give enough credit to those of us who like
Mhm.
really help coach people down paths, because there's so much stuff you're siphoning through that I don't want to say isn't of value, but it's like you have to deal with it to get to the root causes
Mhm.
and the main points. Because if you don't go through that stuff, then the people you're talking to don't even trust you. They don't even
Mhm.
allow you to get to the root stuff. So it's like, buckle up for the ride.
Mhm.
Wholeheartedly.
I don't think people realize how vital coaches and leadership is, just in day-to-day life. You know what I mean?
Or just being real.
Yeah.
Like just being able to be like calling people out on bullshit.
Mhm.
Nah, man,
Right.
that's not how you really feel. And
Like,
if that is
really?
how you really
Yeah,
feel,
yeah, yeah.
That's what we're gonna do right now?
that's trash, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or just like I had a conversation with someone, and we were having a conversation, and then it got hijacked, and I let him sit. I was like, okay. I think like 3-4 minutes, the person finally stopped talking. I said, hey, can I tell you something real quick? And they said, yeah. I said, I didn't want to know any of that shit.
Mhm.
And they're like, I said, I was talking, and then you completely hijacked the conversation. And I said, not to mention, everything you just told me, you told me yesterday. So you
Right.
really just
Mhm.
wasted 4 or 5 minutes of my day. And I
Mhm.
said, I appreciate you, but like, let's work
Mhm.
on the just letting other people just talk.
Mhm.
And it was funny because at first glance, people were like, wow, you're an asshole. Like, damn, you must have hurt that person's feelings. The person I told that to was like, I wish more people would do that,
Right.
because I know that I'm not a great listener, but nobody ever kind of like calls me out on it. And I really appreciate that. And anytime that happens, just tell me. And I was like, cool. I'm going to tell you anyways, if you don't like it or not, because I
Yeah.
don't like my time wasted.
I mean, I think we all look for like some kind of discipline and guidance and structure.
Mhm.
We really do.
Yep.
Even if we don't realize it.
Mhm.
We constantly, I still look for guidance and structure. Because if you let me, Like I'll get lazy.
I'll run a mic.
You know, right? And I know that. So I think if I don't find it here, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna find someone. I'm gonna find someone and I'm gonna tap into that.
Yeah.
And I want there to be consequences.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Right.
Even in dysfunction, even in criminality, I want there to be consequences.
Yeah.
I won't even kick it with you if you're not willing to do something to me if I break whatever rule.
Right.
You have to be willing. If not, I'm not gonna kick it with you.
Yeah.
So we really truly want to live in a world where there are consequences because that means this matters.
Yeah.
This is significant shit.
Yeah.
This is important.
Yep.
I have to be on my game.
Yeah.
If not, we're just goofy, bro.
Yeah,
Right.
we're just around,
Yeah. As the last maybe 3 weeks, I've been having this conversation with my kids, just on accountability, and more specifically, just talking about like be very selective of who is in your circle, right? Regardless of what age you are, like it's important to be selective because if you practice those principles earlier, once you get mid 20s, 30s, 40s, etc., like it's now become habit. And I think that far too often is that we don't assess what our circle looks like, right? Because just like you said, if you're not holding me accountable, what are we doing? Like we're too old. You know what I mean? Like our time clock is
Speak for yourself.
or look old. No, but I mean, like I think that for me, I am in a very I often talk about the seasons of the life that I'm in, but I think for me, being able to really identify, because my kids are watching, right? Being able to identify who's actually in my circle, what value are they bringing? Are they holding me accountable? If I'm telling them, hey, these are the things that I want to accomplish in the next 12 months, 5 years, etc. Just being able to tap into that because we are human and we fall off a little bit. We have that off day. And I think that that's where those accountability partners come in. That's where I can be like, hey, Carlos, bro, listen, I'm here are my goals. I know I've already communicated to you, but however, like, man, I'm just having an off day. And just hearing your voice, hearing whatever is on your heart, you sharing, sometimes that is all someone needs. So
yeah, we talked about that with one of the businesses that we're helping the other day is like the whole friends thing. I was like, hey, we're giving them all a sheet. We're like, hey, 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. And they were like, well, shit, I don't even know what's going on like next week. And we were like, look, this isn't like you're planning out the rest of your life, but you have to give it thought. And I said, and one of the most uncomfortable things you're going to have to think about, what does your friend group look like in 10 years? Do you still want to be kicking it with people who can barely get gas? Or are you trying to be with people who own properties, own businesses, who can have emotionally intelligent conversations with you? Those are all, like, it doesn't even have to be monetary things. I want people that I can trust, I can count on, and that when I have something wrong, they will listen and not judge me. Those are some of the most invaluable things, but people don't think about it. Like, we're so used to thinking about like what's in their pocket or what do I see in front of me rather than like what is like really internal.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my friends now. You know, people that I'm around and the friends that I've had in the past. It's real.
Two totally different
It's
worlds.
real. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this before. It's like, probably within the last year, I've lost two of my longest standing friends, but it was because as this evolution of my life happens, there were either behaviors that happened where I was like, that no longer aligns with where I'm going, or we're just different people now, and that's okay. There was nothing like derogatory.
It is okay.
There's nothing that's derogatory that happened. It's just you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. That's okay. But our relationship has reached its endpoint, and we both will do just fine in life. And it's like, but there's no reason to like hold on just for the sake of holding on.
And it's a genuine moment.
Yeah,
it really is. It's a defining moment. I was sitting on a prison yard on the curb. Well, I had just gotten kicked out. So I'm back. And I'm around an old friend. I was gone for a long time. I was in prison, but I was gone for a long time. And then I come back. I'm around people again. And I run into an old friend, and like this is a dear friend. Known him since we were kids. We fought our cases together, separate cases, but we both we were both convicted of the same crimes, and we both were given life sentences, right? And like our paths split somewhere along the way, right?
Mm.
To be honest with you, I was making worse decisions than he was. So I go away, and when I come back, I'm sitting down with him, and we're sitting on the curb, and we just finished working out, and he just keeps looking at me. He's like looking at me, and I can feel him looking at me. And this is like my ace deuce. I mean, we did. I mean, county jail, reception centers.
Just followed each other.
Yeah, all the way. Kids and level 4, all that, right? So now this is a couple decades later, and I'm sitting down with him on the curb, and he just keeps looking at me, and I look at him, I go, "What's up, man? What's up with you?" Like, I'm thinking something's going on with him.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, and he just keeps telling me, like, "You're different." He's like, "You're different, fool." You know what I mean? And I'm thinking the same thing about him. Well, no, I'm not thinking the same thing about him. I'm thinking the opposite about him, right? He just keeps looking. He won't let it go. And I'm not trying to hit him with this one. You know what I mean? Because there's no need for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he just kept telling me that. And I would change the conversation. And he would just keep saying, like, "You're different, fool, you're different." And I finally looked at him, and I just said, "You're not. Like, you're not different, man." He just looked at me. I said, "You still doing the same shit we were doing when we were in our 20s, man." So I'm in my 40s, bro.
Right.
Fuck. I mean, and what you said resonated with me, because that was a defining moment. Like something, I won't say something broke, but something solidified there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, like I continue to, but I had like genuine like love and appreciation. Like, this was my brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he still is. Like, he will be I would hold him with that kind of esteem for the rest of my life, but it bothered me. And I was too immature or prideful at the time still to keep my mouth shut. But I let him know, like, you haven't, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what are we thinking about getting out of this fucking place or not? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
What's up? I mean,
Accountability. Accountability.
they're opening the doors.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing?
And sometimes we it's important to know that we have people that can help us widen our lens when our eyelids are starting to close a little bit. And that's how I look at accountability now. Like, sometimes, like, like, I'm just going and going and going, and sometimes I get tired, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything, and then my eyes start to close, and then my accountability partner, "Hey, wake up." And sometimes that's all you need. All right, cool, I'm good for another 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes turns into 5 days, 5 months,
Right.
etc. So, accountability partners. So if my kids are watching this, accountability. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
So,
Okay.
so as we wrap up,
Yes. So this is the one question that I enjoy asking our guests. And the reason is Cam and I are selective of who we ask to be on this platform. And like I said, the values always align up with life, love, leadership. Sometimes it's all 3 elements. And so we have a lot of viewers who are from entrepreneurs who are going through a season of wanting to be leaders, we're going through a current season of just like, man, life is just hitting and I don't know how to get out of it. Right. And so the question is, life, love, or leadership. If you could pick one of those words and just whatever's on your heart, just share that.
you have to choose one.
I think I'll choose. What am I going to go with? I'll go with leadership.
Okay.
That's why Glenn likes you.
I'll go with leadership. Today, I have no, like, I have no. I'm not opposed to it, but I have no hunger or desire to be put in leadership positions. Like, I'm looking for how I can continue to be a productive part of whatever I'm involved in, whatever role that needs to be, right? But I've exhausted that part. Like being a leader, like I've exhausted any desires. No, not desires, because I still like leading. Like I'm never not gonna like leading, but the need to lead doesn't exist for me no more. So whenever I'm put in a position, and I always am, where I'm a subordinate to someone, like I pay attention, leading styles, communication styles, how relatable, so on and so forth. And the people that I appreciate and will follow the most are the ones who, when they show up, they're not looking to see what they can change about the environment that they're in. Like they'll show up and they're looking to see what they have to change about themselves. To me, that's a sign of a true leader. If you can show up and before you start making decisions about whatever, like understanding the environment, understanding where you are, understanding what's happening, knowing what your players are, knowing who's involved, knowing who's not, knowing who's easy, knowing who's difficult, and then making a decision about yourself. Because what needs to happen with me first? Before we get to that, like what version of me needs to walk into this building every day? And then decisions get made, and then you become unpopular.
I love it. Cam, you want to close us out?
No, you're right, man. I think so. We talk about, at least in the military, those of us who actually care about leadership, talk about like this kind of 90-day rule. Whenever you take over places, like, yo, let me sit back for like 90 days. Like I'm gonna notice things. Obviously, I'll make decisions if it's like safety issues and stuff like that. But in general, like, let me learn the players. Let me learn the process. Let me learn programs. Then I can be educated enough to actually bring everybody together and have a conversation about what my thoughts personally are. And then, like you said, like creates like that flow. Too many times I think people think it's just their job to go in there and just make decisions. And that's like where that awareness comes from, right? So no, I get it. But we appreciate you. So so obviously you don't have any social media. You already said that. Normally we tell people like, hey, man, that's all right. Honestly, I envy that sometimes. I'm like, man, because I there's so much I get wrapped up into doing, not only for the podcast, but our business. And obviously we have help, but still like I pay attention to it. And it takes a lot of energy, And so no, I envy that lightweight sometimes, like, man. But that being said, are there any projects or anything that you're working on personally you'd like to mention, or things that you truly care about that you would like our listeners to really pay attention to, like in this environment?
Yeah, there are a few things that I am currently working on. I'm not going to mention them, because they're tied into the agency that I'm working with. And so this agency that I'm working with is, I've had the privilege of working with a few different agencies, but this agency that I'm working with right now is stringent. They're so it's clean, it's polished, it's
well executed.
It's no bullshit, right? It's professional, and I respect them for it. So if I hadn't had the conversation with them saying like, look, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be on this podcast, and I think that conversation needed to take place first. But there are a few things we're trying to do.
Nice.
For sure.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Looking forward to seeing how we can
Thank you for the
support.
opportunity, though. And thanks for
Absolutely.
the invite.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Well, Carlos, thank you for your time. We'll obviously connect offline.
Yep.
Again, guys, thanks for tuning into the Healthy Perspective. Feel free to comment, like, share, tap in with your thoughts. Y'all have a good one.
Peace.
What's going on, guys? Hey, welcome back to season 2 of the Healthy Perspective.
And I was like, your teacher's there to teach you algebra and math. My job is to teach you how to survive and to help guide you as much as I can.
I was thinking about one of the surveys. 2 out of the 3 of our topics that really stood out regarding men in our viewpoint was love and leadership. This is the Healthy Perspective where we talk life, love, and leadership. We really dove into the piece of life and leadership.
Like, love, share. These conversations are the ones that really affect everyday life for all of us. And ultimately, we do this for you to begin with. Keep listening. We appreciate y'all who are rocking with us into season 2. Because like I said, we do it for y'all.
Yes.